Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, the wonderful people who have tuned in to this great podcast. Although you haven't subscribed yet, because as of now, I'm looking at our new and improved channel that I've set up, and none of you have hit the big red subscribe button. So I'm going to need you to do that for me right now before you get into this wonderful episode. Okay. I think that should be enough time for you to get that done so you didn't miss anything. Jared, how are we feeling today?
I'm feeling pretty good. It's a nice little Sunday afternoon here. It's feeling pretty good.
Down here in Valdosta, it is rainy and nasty, but
It is
other than that,
over here in good old Statesboro. It's looking a little muggy. Not quite
ah,
not quite raining yet, but we're supposed to get some later.
well, that's probably what's coming from here. Anyway, so the stuff that we're going to talk about today, nothing specifically Atlanta related, even though we are the greatest Atlanta podcast alive. Unfortunately, we covered the Hawks trade deadline last episode. Not many changes to that, although I did see a proposed trade that involved Josh Hart and Kevin Huerter that I've seen talked about. But if that happens, we'll definitely talk about it. But right now, it's all just rumor and innuendo. Braves aren't able to do anything because it's millionaires are arguing with billionaires and no one's giving an inch. And football not done just yet. So we will be talking more about the Falcons free agency in the coming weeks. But for now, we're going to be focusing on the other stuff that's going on with football right now that may or may not involve the Falcons. And the first thing we're going to be talking about is the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We have the 15 finalists listed out, not to mention a few of the senior people, which we're not necessarily going to talk about. But we're going to be talking about who on the 2022 ballot should get in, who didn't make the finalists this year that we think should get in the future, and then we're going to look ahead to 2023 and talk about those first timers. So, if you're okay with this, I'm going to give you the first name. We're going to start the discussion there. You go with that, Jared?
Go for it.
All right. First name that we're going to be putting up here is Jared Allen, your namesake.
My man Jared Allen. He was a beast. Okay, you can't be wrong with that. The man got to the quarterback. He was a wrecker. He was a home wrecker. He got in that backfield. He was he played for what? He played for the Panthers for what? A year? 2 years?
Let's check on that. He played in Carolina. He only played there for half a year.
Half a year? Okay, I remember he was on the Panthers. I know he
played there for 12 games in 2015, and then he ended up in Chicago for 3 games that season, and then he was done.
I'm pretty sure he had a sack against the Falcons that year, but he was
tends to happen.
Yeah, it tends to happen. The worst O-line in the freaking league for 12 since Matt Ryan's been drafted for the worst O-line in the league. So
yeah. Anyway, so I'm looking at Jared Allen's stats, and I mean, one number I don't think should get you in, but considering Jared Allen only played 11 seasons and got 136 sacks, I mean, to me, it's kind of hard to argue with that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is an incredible type of career, and you're looking at some of the seasons where he led the league in sacks twice. I mean, anybody that could put up 22 sacks in a season was obviously very good, but it was also the consistency. He was a double-digit sack guy, right up until his last 2 years.
Yeah.
So while the career wasn't necessarily as long as you normally would like to see, I have a hard time saying he's not a Hall of Famer.
He put in a lot of good years, quality years. If you're gonna go,
he was a 4-time All-Pro first team.
Yeah,
and he finished in the top 5 in Defensive Player of the Year voting twice.
3 times.
Yeah, I got twice up here.
I think it was 3 times.
One of them was he was a Defensive Rookie of the Year finalist.
His
first year, and then he was DPOY, 4-time All-Pro. I think he's I don't know if he'll get in this year, but I think he'll get in.
I think he'll get.
I don't know. Pro football doesn't necessarily care about the whole first ballot thing as much as baseball does. But I think he'll get in. I think he's been on the ballot for a year or 2 now, and I don't see a reason to keep him off.
I see one real reason he should be in. One real reason. His jersey number. Simple as that.
You're terrible.
Jersey number says it.
All right. The next player that we will be discussing is Willie Anderson. Offensive tackle.
See, offensive linemen are hard to argue for, I mean, because you can look at like sacks allowed, you can look at all that stuff,
Yeah.
but you don't really get highlight reels of O linemen, like especially ones like he played what? So, like when did he play? Like
He was a
19?
tackle.
Yeah,
He was in
when?
from 1996 to 2008.
Yeah, so like me and you didn't really get to watch him play,
No, not at all.
so it's like it's
And
one
not
of
to mention
those.
he played in Cincinnati for most of his career. So even if we were like alive and kicking, we wouldn't have
Yeah,
seen him anyway.
exactly. So it's like I don't even. I mean, I know he's a great tackle. Like, don't get me wrong. I know he was great, but it's like you can't really sit here and just look at stats and just be like, yeah, that's why he should be in because he was. Yeah, it's just hard to look at
Mhm.
stats for O lineman and be like, that's why. You just kind of got to
Yeah,
know the player and
I
just.
say
Well,
just
it's yeah.
looking at his career numbers. I mean, obviously the numbers on offensive tackles aren't exactly great, especially going
Yeah.
back then. But Football Reference has the whole annual value thing, and it looks like he didn't really hit his peak until he was about 28. Up until that point, he was
Mhm.
playing, but he wasn't exactly like awesome. He was decent, and his peak really only lasted for 4 years. And those 4 years were great. He was a three-time All-Pro and first team and one-time second team. But I just off of a 4 year peak in a 11-year career, I don't
Not
think
enough.
I don't think it's there. I mean, I've always been one to kind of value longevity over
Mhm.
um, performance. So like to me, if you're really good for 15 years, that's better than being awesome for 7.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm kind of a no on him. I don't know about you, but Willie Anderson, Hall of very good.
I'll agree there. Hall of almost there.
Hall of almost. All right, so the next guy down the list, Rondé Barber.
That's a yes.
A yes?
That's a
Tell
yes.
me why, good sir.
That's Rondé Barber, man. I remember having to watch him play for the Buccaneers as the Falcons. Dude, that's just nightmares.
He was
Uh,
he was very consistent, that's for sure.
yes, very consistent.
And not to
He
mention
always,
something that isn't talked about enough. He did it all for one team. He never played outside Tampa.
yeah, he said that's called commitment. That's
10
and
interceptions in the season is quite impressive.
unless you're Trayvon Diggs and you just suck and you get burnt every
Yeah,
play and make up
honestly,
with
that's given up a few too many passing yards. If you look down, hopefully it actually shows me. They weren't tracking that kind of stuff back in the day. Doesn't I don't know if it necessarily shows how many yards he gave up in those games.
I doubt it.
No, they don't like to actually track things. But I mean, 10 interceptions, not to mention 24 passes defended in that season. One of the great seasons. Multiple time first team All Pro, and he was again very consistent. I mean, even his last season. So first of all, this is another underrated thing. In his last season, at the age of 37, he shifted to free safety, and not only did he play all 16 games, he had 4 interceptions.
Yeah, and he still had 92 tackles.
He wasn't necessarily a great player, but he was a good player. He was a
Yeah,
quality player. So I
leadership
think I'm with
too.
you on Rondé Barber. I think Rondé has to go in. Um, Now moving down to the next guy, Tony Baselli.
Again, it's one of those things. O lineman, it's like it's hard to just sit there and argue. You know what I'm talking about? Like it's hard to just
Yeah.
sit there and. But
Well, I can sum this up for me personally very quickly. He played 6 years.
no,
I say anybody that
unless
his career was six to 7 seasons, and by 2001 he was only playing 3 games. Like I mean, if he had a career-ending injury, then that I still don't think they get you in the Hall of Fame. That's it's one of those things where it's like what could have been, but
he gave up 15, basically 16 stats, 16 sacks in 6 seasons. So it's like that's what 3 a year.
yeah. I mean, he was good. He was a 3-time All-Pro first team. So I'm not denying his skill. I'm just saying
Yeah,
if you're talking about a Hall of Fame, that's supposed to take into account the entire career. And
yeah.
if your entire career is only 6 years long, I don't think that there's much to really discuss at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna go ahead and move on. The next one is Leroy Butler, who is a little bit, and by that I mean a lot bit, out of our era.
Yeah. A little bit. He's a little old.
A little bit, but looking into the career, multiple time All Pro first team, finished
3 times, yeah.
sixth in a
4 times.
depoy. Yeah, there you go. Multiple time Pro Bowler. How seemed to rack up tackles. Had some good interception years. Nothing incredibly crazy, but I mean,
Consistency.
6 interceptions is a good year.
I've
Very
seen
consistent. Went
consistency.
around the 5 and a 3.
6.5 sacks 1 year. I decided out of strong safety, I'll take that any day I can.
Blitz boy. I don't want to disrespect him like that. So I mean, based off numbers, I think there's a good argument there. Although his career was short with 11 years, but I mean, again, hard for me to talk about it because I never watched the man play.
Yeah, agree.
But I mean, based off raw numbers, I think he's got a legitimate argument. So now this next one, I think, is one of the more controversial ones because the raw numbers say absolutely not. Devin Hester.
I think if there was a way to separate Hall of Fame by position, it'd be no doubter. He's the best. He's the best special teams player to ever touch the field. There's no question about that. So I think he's in either way, in my opinion. I think they should put him in because of what he done. Because you think about it, every coach will tell you got to win all 3 phases. You got to win offense, defense, special teams. Devin Hester allows you to win special teams no matter who you're playing, what you're doing. He wins special teams for you alone.
Yeah. I would have loved to see Devin Hester in the modern game because I think he has gadget player potential, like on some like Cordero Patterson or like Debo Samuel.
Oh yeah.
Like I think putting him in an offense with off the coordinators nowadays who are a lot more flexible would have been so awesome because the biggest thing with Devin was he was always a special team guy, but he was never a wide receiver. He only really did the one thing because so many people were just like, you have to be a wide receiver who runs routes and does this, this, and this. But if you would put him in like an Arthur Smith offense where it was like, I can use this guy anywhere. Like I can run end arounds with this guy. I can scheme this dude open. I think it would have been a lot better. But I think he's a Hall of Famer for the simple fact of, I mean, you have to put guys in that were trailblazers. You have to put guys in that were truly the best at what they did. I mean, there's a reason that Dennis Eckersley made the Hall of Fame. He was a good closer, but he wasn't necessarily a Hall of Fame level closer. But he was the first closer. Devin Hester wasn't necessarily the first punt returner. I mean, obviously Deion Sanders was one of the best was the best returner until Devin Hester. But Devin Hester was one of the first guys to really make that like his role is specifically.
Oh yeah.
I do this, and he was so good at it. To me, it'd be hard to keep him out. The raw numbers don't support it, but I think because of what he did at that position, he's got to be there. Yes. All right, so the next guy up on the list is Torrey Holt.
Oh, monster. Yes, easily.
Not many other ways you can describe Torrey Holt. That's for sure.
He was part of that really good Rams season, right? Or season 2.
Oh yeah, it was Torrey and Isaac.
Yeah,
greatest show on turf.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
monster. Only a one-time first team All Pro. He was an All Pro second team. A lot of Pro Bowl seasons.
AJ Terrell,
2 1,600-yard seasons.
Yeah, that's a
bit of a short career, but at the same time, you almost expect that because he was a wide receiver who came in at 23. So he was kind of behind the 8 ball from the beginning. I think he's the strongest candidate on this list, just because he was so good he was consistently good for a very long period of time. Again, his career might have been as long, but he was still putting up good numbers, putting up 1,100-yard seasons at the age of 31. And even when he was, 32 and 33, right towards the end of his career, he was still putting up 700 yards, averaging about 12 to 14 a catch. I mean, he was consistently valuable.
Yeah.
So I'm with now the next wide receiver on the list, Andre Johnson.
I go back and forth with Andre Johnson. People love him. I don't love him. Don't hate him. He had some really good seasons, but he had some really bad seasons.
Yeah.
And that's where I look at that, and it's like He never averaged over 100 yards a game, which, in my opinion, is like hard to do. But like, if you're a really good wide receiver, you should be able to do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I think looking at Andre Johnson's career, you kind of have to look at it under the lens of, remember, he was in Houston.
yeah,
So it's sort of like it's like when we look back at Calvin Johnson, and it's like he was in, well, not even that, because he actually had a quarterback. Andre was always kind of behind the eight ball there. But I mean, being able to put up as many 1,000-yard seasons in Houston as he did, when you're, I mean, I can't. David Carr was probably his quarterback
yeah.
around that time.
You have a car.
I mean, if you're able to put up numbers with that guy, it's like Allen Robinson. I mean, the fact that Allen Robinson was putting up 1,400 yards in Jacksonville and Chicago nowadays is it looks even better considering his quarterback was Blake Bortles or whoever they had over in Jacksonville around that time, and then Mitchell Trubisky.
Yeah,
I'm
good.
good. I'm of the opinion he should be in there.
Okay.
I think there's an argument there, especially since his career was relatively long and he was still effective around the end. So the next guy on the list is even farther out of our era than Leroy Butler was. Sam Mills.
Sam Mills, bro. I know about some Sam Mills though. That dude. If you see him coming at you, just know you're not getting any farther.
Okay.
Just know.
Interesting part of his story is he didn't get the NFL until he was 27,
I did not know that.
and then he lasted until he was 38. Played in New Orleans for 9 years. So considering he played for two NFC South opponents, I'm going to say no.
I agree. But I mean, look how many tackles he had. Look at this.
Forget all those New Orleans people. Yeah. Hey, listen. Actually, looking at him, it's interesting because he was a top 10 finalist in Defensive Player of the Year 3 times. So I think there might be an argument. I don't necessarily know because I didn't watch him, but based off raw numbers, he looks like he was a very good linebacker for a decent area of his career.
Definitely putting him in.
All right, the next player is Richard Seymour.
Got to see him play a little bit. He was good. I feel like he was kind of overrated a little bit, in my opinion, because he's a Patriots player.
Yeah.
But I mean, he had what? Let's see. He had not even 60 sacks in his career through 11 years.
Yeah, he was. I was gonna say it's hard for me to put, although he was defensive end, defensive tackle, so he was probably more of a space clogger, which you kind of have to look at, through that lens of like that era.
Yeah.
But I mean, having 57.5 sacks over 11 years and only getting to 8 twice and never getting above that, I think it's hard for me to include him because it looks like he had a good peak with the Patriots from 03 to 06. And then like that was it. Like he had 4 really good years and then a bunch of mediocre years.
Yeah, I wouldn't put him in. I don't think there's any chance he gets in that one. I mean, I could just be blind, but
I was gonna say, in all fairness, we could be looking at it from a different perspective, but I don't think he'll necessarily get it. The next one up, Zach Thomas.
I don't know much about Zach Thomas. I'm not gonna be frank with you. I don't know much about him. I know. Yeah, I know about him. I just know I couldn't sit here and tell you a lot about him. Oh, okay. Hold up. I'm looking at it. There's no debate. No debate. Throw him in there.
Dude was a ton of all pros.
1, 2, 3, 4,
few deep boys.
5 AP1s, 2 AP2s, second rookie of the year.
He was always around 150 tackles in her season.
He's in there.
So not to mention he, as a linebacker, was putting up 3 interceptions multiple times. Yeah, he's got to be in there. He's got to be in there.
He's in there.
The next one, I want to hear your take here. I know where I'm at. DeMarcus Ware.
I think it's a yes.
Absolutely. Anybody in an 11-year career can put up 138 and a half sacks, similar to Jared Allen. If Jared Allen's in, then DeMarcus Ware is in, as far as I'm concerned. He's better. He's got a Super Bowl ring, first and foremost.
Shout out Broncos.
He was a big player on that team, and he was consistently great. 20 sacks, 15 and a half. 14, 20, 11, 15 and a half, 19 and a half, 11 and a half. I put him in there. Put him in.
Definitely.
All right, moving on, because I don't think there's much. There's not going to be much argument here for this one either. Reggie Wayne.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think we really have to expand on that. I mean, never the greatest, but always one of the best.
Agreed.
Patrick Willis.
No.
No?
No.
What's your reasoning behind it?
Didn't play long enough.
And unfortunately, it was out of his control because of the injuries. But same thing I was talking about with Tony Boselli. If your career is only 7 years, I find it hard for me to put you in the Hall of Fame. While he was obviously great. I just talking about just hard for me.
Yeah,
to put him in. All right.
Yeah, he had great seasons, but it's like he didn't have enough great seasons.
Yeah, he would have had a chance to build upon what he was doing as he kind of hit his 30s. And if he had kept going and played the way that a guy like Zach Thomas played after he hit 30, you would put Patrick Willis in. But because he had to cut it short, you can't really put him in. And last guy, Bryant Young.
I'm gonna have to go with yes on this one.
Really?
Got to go.
Why do you say yes?
Because back to what we were kind of saying about the whole clogging the lanes type of thing. Man, as a defensive tackle had multiple years over 10 sacks.
Yeah, I was just looking at that.
More sacks, yeah. I'm putting him in.
Yeah, he might get looked upon favorably in the modern day because he seemed like he was a little different at defensive tackle. His build is similar to Aaron Donald's, considering he's only 290 as a defensive tackle.
6'3", yeah.
Yeah, so there's a chance he gets in on the kind of shift of how we look at defensive tackles. All right, and then looking at the semifinalists who weren't able to get in to the voting this year, do you see anybody that jumps out at you as somebody who you think should absolutely be a Hall of Famer?
Shoot, where's that list at? Hold up.
It's on. If you go to Pro Football Reference and look it up, they'll show you the semifinals and the finalists. I'll give you time. I'm looking and I see one definite, and then I see one that I would consider.
I'll give you 1 second.
Take your time.
It's on PFF.
Yeah, if you just search 2022 Hall of Fame ballot, it should come up.
Okay. Oh, that's MLB. We already did that.
So we're not talking about that one anymore. Thank God.
Okay, that was a fun time. Okay, here we go. Okay. Hines Ward. That's mine.
Okay.
I'm putting Hines Ward in.
Okay.
Vince Wilfork's maybe.
Vince Wilfork's a maybe.
Yes.
Or that's I don't necessarily hate that. I think you're leaving out the best one, man. I think Steve Smith deserves to get in 1,000%.
I missed him.
Steve Smith was. I mean, as someone I actually got to watch Steve Smith. Yeah. This is one of the few guys that is on here finally because of the people that I watched, and Steve Smith was awesome. Yeah, and I hated it because I had to watch him do it to my team every year. Jesus. But I mean, to be able to put up those numbers in Carolina before they had Cam Newton, I mean, when you had Jake Delhomme or whoever the heck else they could dig up in the 2000s to put up 103 yards and 1,500 or 103 receptions and 1,500 yards, and to do that, stuff like that consistently, I don't think there's any contest.
Agreed.
100%. I think Hines Ward is. I think he's a solid pick. I think he has a chance to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And then Anquan Bolden, I think, is a borderline case.
He's there.
He was very consistent for a very long period of time, but he was never, singularly dominant.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see how they weigh him versus everybody else, but I think he's got a shot. All right, and now going on to the second part of the segment, looking at the 2023 first year guys and our thoughts on them. So the easy one is Joe Thomas.
Easily.
He'll be a first year lock, 1000%, no questions asked. Then you've got guys like Dwight Freeney, who I'm inclined to say yes.
I'm in.
Because of the longevity going from 2002 to 2017, and he was a consistent pass rusher up until maybe that last year with Seattle and Detroit and in Atlanta. He's one of the few reasons we probably made the Super Bowl because he was actually able to, put pressure on the quarterback.
Yes. He was the sole reason why Vic Beasley was good for one season.
Yeah, exactly. The moment he left, conveniently, Vic Beasley forgot how to rush the passer.
Oh, my.
James Harrison, I think, will be an interesting conversation. I think there's a chance. And then the other big one, Darrelle Revis.
Easy.
Absolutely.
Revis Island. Easy.
I say career didn't last nearly as long as you would want it, but considering at his peak, he was the best cornerback in the league, and he was that locked down and that feared to the point where you didn't throw to that side of the field. I think he's got to be in there.
I agree.
So let's see if there's anybody else that I can see that piques my interest. Not really. It's a lot of Hall of Very good guys. You're looking at guys like Elvis Dumerville, Cam Chancellor, who I don't think he might not get in because of the shortness of his career because he retired at 30. But I mean, when he was at his peak, there was nobody. You would rather see anybody else coming at you over the middle.
Oh, I'd shit bricks.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so outside of that, you don't really see a lot of people. I mean, Carson Palmer will be on the ballot, but I don't think he was good enough to qualify. Yeah, so that's going to be the end of that because everybody else is kind of Eric Weems.
Eric
Weems right at the bottom ahead of Martellus Bennett. He's going to be available for the ballot. Oh, man.
There's no way Eric Weems makes it.
He won't, but come on.
There's no way.
I'm rooting for him out of the goodness of my heart. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to our second topic of the day, which is quite simply I'm going to talk about the Super Bowl because what kind of sports podcast would we be if we didn't talk about the biggest game of the year? So to start off, Jared, who do you have?
Got Rams. My boy Matty Stafford. All the way.
Got the Rams.
Got the Rams. Don't get me wrong. I don't care. I do care. If the Bengals win, I'm not going to be upset or anything, but it's like I'm rooting for the Rams. Happy.
Okay.
My boy Matty.
Okay. I say, everything that I know about football is telling me to pick the Rams because I believe, especially in the postseason, if you can get pressure, you're automatically like 3 steps ahead. And because the Rams have such a great pass rush combined with Cincinnati's terrible offensive line, they would obviously have the advantage. This Cincinnati team seems like a team of destiny, man.
It's hard.
Down 21-3 in Arrowhead against Patrick Mahomes, and they came back and won in overtime. I have a hard time picking against a team that has just continually defied the odds, beating the number 1 seed while getting sacked 9 times, and then beating the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City after being down 18 at half. I'm picking Cincinnati just for that.
Just for that.
Although, like I said, everything I know about football tells me to pick the Rams.
Yeah.
Everything I knew about football told me to pick the Chiefs too, and that didn't work out. So if the Rams win, I won't be surprised, but at the same time, it's like I can't pick against this team of destiny. It's like picking against the Red Sox after they came back from down 3-0. It was almost like, well, this is happening. Like there's no other way for this story to end.
Yeah. It's hard to like, bet on this or anything. It's just because you look both ways. There's an argument to go for both teams easily.
Yeah. Shout out to Ricardo Allen for leaving the Atlanta Falcons and then immediately getting into a Super Bowl.
What a G.
It is impressive to me how he was able to do that. It's almost like leaving Atlanta helps in some ways, but shout out to him. The other interesting thing I've noticed about this Super Bowl is the way that these rosters were built, and as the two best GMs without jobs currently in pro sports, I mean, it's interesting to me because the Bengals kind of did it through the old not the old fashioned way, like the new fashioned way, where they drafted everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Burrow, Chase, Mixon, Higgins, Boyd, all those guys. Most of the Jesse Bates, most of the pillars were drafted, and they used free agency to kind of shore up the deficiencies.
Yes,
but then the Rams.
Yeah.
Good.
Go. Sorry. No, you're good.
No, you're good.
Okay. So what I was gonna say is most of Cincinnati's offense was drafted, but a good amount of their pieces on defense were bought, which is kind of funny to see. They bought their defense, but they drafted their offense.
Yeah, I would say that's the one thing I noticed too is they didn't necessarily draft defense. They really just spent a ton of money and were able to get guys like Trey Hendrickson and guys like Chidobe Awuzie and whatnot.
Oh, Eli Apple, Trey Wayne.
Well, I think Eli Apple is a most definite negative, but either way, we don't have to quibble about that. He's just a bum. Yeah, and the other interesting thing I've noticed is their cornerback room is a ton of arguably failed cornerback picks.
They're bad. They're bad.
Well, Chidobe Awuzie has been good this year, but he was kind of hit or miss in Dallas the year before. But then you've got guys like Eli Apple, and you've got guys like Vernon Hargraves, and I mean, yeah, it's a ton of guys that were supposed to be the guy, and they just never ended up being the guy. But then looking at the Rams team, it's interesting because they were built for trade, realistically.
Mm-hmm.
The only real pillar of their team that they drafted was Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. But Robert Woods is hurt.
Van Jefferson,
Odell, Stafford, Miller, they were all traded for, and then you had guys. They signed Leonard Floyd, they signed Josh Johnson, they traded for Jalen Ramsey. So I mean, it's interesting to look at how both of these two teams used their first round picks.
It's very interesting to see. You can do it in a multitude of ways. You can build a team any way you want. It's different for every team.
And it's that reason why I love football and baseball, because like the NBA, it's like there's really one way to do it. You just have to be a superstar and then figure it out from there. But with football, it's like you can have a superstar, but that doesn't matter. Just ask the Detroit Lions. I mean, they had one of the greatest running backs of all time and didn't do anything with it. And then they had arguably the most physically gifted wide receiver of all time, who was singularly dominant, and they could barely get to the playoffs. So
bad.
One of the reasons why I love this sport. But man, I hope Joe Burrow doesn't get killed.
Aaron Donald might do it.
Aaron, there's a non-zero chance that Aaron Donald just accidentally murders this poor kid.
Yeah, that's definitely a chance. Definitely going to be concerned for that.
Not to mention even if he steps out to avoid the pressure, then he's got Von Miller coming after him. Joe Burrow is going to be running for his life the entire game. Yeah, it's going to look like Pat Mahomes last year in the Super Bowl with Tampa.
Oh my, that was ugly.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. The one thing I think they have on them is I think they have an advantage outside. I think Cincinnati's wide receivers, I think that they have an advantage there, because while the Rams have Jalen Ramsey, the Cincinnati has 3 starting quality wide receivers.
True, but I think Darius Williams is better than people think he is. I think Darius Williams is highly capable of holding his own. I think just after that, you look at the Rams depth chart and it's like, who the frick are you?
It's also Darius is good, but he has to guard T. Higgins, who's a 6'5", like jump ball receiver.
Yeah.
So
David Long's been
that
playing pretty well
case,
though. They could slide him in there this week because David Long has been playing lights out.
hey, listen, like I said, the Rams have a ton of talent. That's for sure. And I don't know how Cincy's defense. I said I don't know how Cincy's defense is going to stop Kansas City, and they didn't for the first half, but they sure tightened up. So I don't know what's going to happen. I just know that Cincinnati is just looking like those guys.
You want to know why? Simply, the Rams can stop the Bengals.
Hmm.
You know the defensive coordinator is? It's that man.
Raheem Morris.
It's that man Raheem. That's the man right there.
If there's one guy that deserves a head coaching spot, it's Raheem. Raheem has never gotten a fair shake. Anybody having to be the head coach of Tampa before Tom Brady got there never had a fair shake.
And then being thrown into the fire of Atlanta, saying, "Here, we're gonna fire you anyways, more than likely, but like, coach for a little bit for now.
Yeah, try to win as many games because if you win the games, we may give you an interview."
And we did.
But it was really just a Brian Flores interview where they already knew who they wanted to hire.
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Not to say I love Arthur Smith, but
I do too.
I mean, Raheem is just one of it's hard to not root for Raheem Morris.
Great guy.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Dan Quinn was a great guy though. And
he was a great guy, and you gotta be a good guy. Yes. You gotta be a good guy off the field and a bad guy in the locker room. But also a good guy at the same time. It's like you gotta be able to push your players to the max. I say the max. You gotta push them hard enough, and I feel like he just never did that because he was too nice.
Yeah, he was very much about maintaining the brotherhood, and he clearly didn't hold anybody accountable.
And that was one thing I noticed when they reported about spring training or training camp this year for Falcons after hiring Arthur Smith. One false start, whole team was running. The whole team, no matter who did, whole team was running. I'm like, bro, I'd be pissed. Be pissed. It's like if someone misses the ground ball and the whole team just has to run at practice. It's like, bro, dude, like, what are you doing? It's ground ball. Come on. Like that's one thing I really love to see is he's holding them accountable.
Yeah. And he also had the most successful season since 2017. So there was also that.
Yeah, there's that too.
But, anyway, going back to the Super Bowl, looking at the way that the teams were built is interesting. But the other big thing I've noticed is a lot of people are talking about this whole like Jamar Chase versus Jalen Ramsey thing. How it's going to be like this one-on-one matchup. The Rams statistically, they play the most zone of anybody, which I didn't know.
Yeah.
But
they just run a zone, but they tend to just let Jalen follow whoever.
So it's almost like a box and one where they put one guy in man coverage and then everybody else plays a zone to kind of help out when needed. Okay. Hey, you know what? I mean, Jalen is that guy. We know that. I think we're beyond the point of calling him overrated, and anybody that does is just not watching the game. I'll say Jamal Adams, you're fair game, but Jalen Ramsey.
God, Jamal Adams is not good. He's so overrated.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there, Chief. So we got a little bit of time at the end. What do you think about the Hawks?
I was about to say for you, this Hawks-Mavs matchup, very quick.
On the Hawks-Mavs, we're recording this on Sunday. I will say I've been given a lot of flack because I was talking with one of my friends, and this was going back. Let me pull up their schedule real fast, make sure I got the timeline right. They're talking about how the Hawks were like, bad in the standings and yada, yada, yada. And I said, don't worry, because there was the stretch starting with, I believe, the Celtics game. Yes, the Celtics to the Pacers was what we were talking about. Yes. I said 5-2, and my friend said 3-4, and my friend's already wrong. But apparently there's something with Toronto.
I don't know. I don't get it.
Well, so the last one I can explain quite easily. They played Phoenix in Atlanta, so playing the best team in the league, and you beat, and then you fly to a different country and play Toronto in Toronto with no fans, and their team is just full of 6'7" guys with like 7'3" wingspans. It's a difficult game to kind of play up to. Yeah. So I don't think it's that worrisome, especially since we played Toronto on like the other end of a back-to-back, but it was in the same area, and we only lost by 6 without Trey.
Yeah.
And with a horrible game from John Collins. So
Terrible.
I don't see any reason to be concerned. Playing the Mavs, we're in Dallas, but I think we win. Because I mean, Luka can't shoot efficiently regardless, let alone DeAndre Hunter on him.
Yeah. DeAndre Hunter is a goat.
That guy. But, I mean, and the best part about the Hawks is they've got the 6th easiest schedule coming up. I mean, they don't really have to worry about too many things. They play the Bulls a few more times. We do have to play the Raptors again.
Play Celtics again.
Cavs. Few good
Bucks.
Eastern Conference teams. But you look at the Eastern Conference, man. Hawks are only 8 games out of first place. They're only 4 games out of the 6th spot and 6 out of the 5th.
I mean, March 25th is going down.
And the Nets are free falling in front of our very eyes.
Oh, they're towering. They're just rolling down.
Kevin Durant went down and everything crumbled, which is kind of the point of them bringing in all the other guys. But either way, so it's way too early to say anything about this being over.
Agreed, 100%. I mean, we're the best team in the East in the last 10.
Yeah,
like you can't.
And it's not like we were playing. Best part about them is that it's not like they were playing cupcakes. I mean,
we're playing really good teams.
I was gonna say beating the Suns, beating the Lakers, the Celtics, the Kings were terrible, but the Hornets are a borderline playoff team. The Heat are really good, and we beat them. The Bucks are good. The Timberwolves are good. I mean, we were right there after that 5-game losing streak. Back to back, they're playing the Heat and the Knicks. The something snapped. Thank goodness, something snapped on this team.
I didn't notice.
I think it'll be.
Oh, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No, you got it. Go ahead.
I didn't notice the other day, but did you know the Minnesota has the best offense in the league right now?
Like all full season?
Yeah, Minnesota has the best offense right now.
Dang, I did not know that.
I didn't know either. I saw a stat the other day, and it's like it was weighing offensive. I think it's efficiency and defense efficiency. Mm-hmm. It's like on a little line chart, and Minnesota has the number 1 offense. I did not know that.
I mean, that was kind of the idea. That was kind of the idea with the whole Ant Edwards. Here, let me get you that.
Because this is
the best place to go.
NBA says it's not true, but the stat I said said it was.
It might have been over like a certain period of time, because they like to frame things that way. It'll be interesting, man. It'll be interesting, especially if the Hawks make a move at the deadline. I'm excited to see. Did you see the thing about Josh Hart?
No.
So the rumor was, I don't know if it was the Hawks reached out to the Pelicans, or the Pelicans reached out to the Hawks, but there was rumored talks of a trade involving Josh Hart and Kevin Huerter.
Hell no. Kevin Huerter stay his white ass here.
I said the same thing, but looking at Josh Hart's numbers, he would be a very valuable player.
Red Velvet the day I die.
I'm assuming that it was the Pelicans calling them about Kevin, because I don't understand why Schlink would want to trade a guy that he just extended.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I don't think it'll happen, because Kevin has a poison pill provision in his contract, which basically means if he gets traded, the team that he gets traded to owes him like 15% more.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it's kind of hard to trade him, and I wouldn't trade him because he just looks so good with the first unit as a shooter.
Oh, really?
It would just kind of mess up the whole, because Josh Hart isn't the shooter that he is. So it's one of those things.
I would definitely rather have Kevin Huerter.
Yeah, 100%. It's just because bringing in Josh Hart would be like, well, do you start Bogey then? And I don't think that Bogey is.
He's not.
I think he's more valuable. Yeah, he's more valuable as the sixth man.
He's playing so good off the bench.
Exactly, because he's able to go in and kind of look for any shot he wants.
Yeah.
So him and Gallo can just kind of play, the European twosome. But I mean, if you put him in the starting lineup, it's like, well, he suddenly becomes the 3rd or 4th option, depending on the play call. and I just don't think that's valuable for him. He needs to be able to go in and just kind of fire away whenever he
Shoot.
wants to.
Let it fly.
Yeah, he's got to be able to chuck it.
He's playing usually worse defenders.
And for the record, season long in offensive rating,
I think it's the Jazz.
the Timberwolves are 14th, the Jazz are
Hey,
number 1, and the
must
Hawks
have
are
been
number 2.
that must have been over like since started. I don't even know. I was looking at.
Probably.
But I know
neither.
I definitely saw something that said they were number 1 at least at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I didn't.
I got you.
Thought it was.
If the Hawks can keep this, going back to the Hawks, if they can keep this defensive run they've had going, they'll be fine. As long as they can get some stops, because during their win streak they were top 10 in defensive rating. If they can keep that going, they'll be fine.
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, well, I think that is going to wrap it up for us. Jerry, do you have anything else that you would like to say to the dozens and dozens of people out there?
No, I mean, Hawks got to keep a hot streak. Rams for the Super Bowl. Let's watch it all happen.
Well said. Couldn't have said any better myself. I hope you'll have a great day. Thank you for tuning in.